Hello, this is Grandmaster Jerry Fasty Fontanes with another episode of Anime Power Talk, Sport Karate Illustrated at the Dojang, where you learn things that actually work. We going down all around the world. This gentleman was not just a point fighter, but also was able to become not a full contact fighter, but a world champion who was actually trained by another world champion who I believe won his title, who at least fought in Japan. So when it's all said and done, some people have been able to transcend at different levels of martial arts skills, and this gentleman absolutely has been a true example of that. Without further ado, I'm not sure if this is the proper title, but we will address him, at least for now, as Master Jeff Gripper. Are you there, sir?
Yes, sir. Jerry, how are you doing today?
I'm blessed. Thank God I'm alive, and I'm excited because we get a chance to finally do this and record it for other people to benefit for the rest of forever. So thank you.
I'm honored to be here.
Well, this is, again, it's going to be, it depends. It's going to be either historical if it's a guy or historical if it's a lady. You're going to get a chance to listen to this. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to go all the way back to the beginning. What was either your inspiration, your desperation, or your motivation to start in the martial arts, maybe when you initially got interested in it and when you get a chance to really have a chance to participate in it. Now, if you don't hear me, it's because I put myself on mute because you have the mic, sir. Take it away.
Well, it started while I was in the Marine Corps. I was stationed on Guam. I was stationed there for 15 months, and the first 8 months I met a Guamanian, and he and I became really, really good friends, and we did a lot of motorcycle riding, trail riding, and running up hills and mountains, and then after that I started to go to the movies, and I saw a Bruce Lee movie, and then I started going every week to the movies. And when I got back to the United States, that was the first thing I did was find me a karate studio that was right out of the base at Camp Lejeune. Well, really, it's Camp Geiger. Camp Geiger is in North Carolina, right near Camp Lejeune, and there was a karate studio, maybe a mile from the base, and I went in there, and I started training, and I became hooked. I kind of remember it was a Japanese style called Shaolin Tetsu Kenryu. And I got my first belt. It was an orange belt. And a group of us had started because we knew we were going on a 6-month Mediterranean cruise and do something while we was on a ship. But it turned out that I was the only one that stuck with it. Out of the 4 guys that went to the karate studio, I was the only one that got my first promotion. Once we got on the ship, I ran into a Navy guy. His name was Rick Greiger. He was a 3rd-degree black belt in a martial arts style that had karate, judo, and jiu-jitsu all together. And he took me under his wing, and for 6 months, that's all I did was study on a flight deck with him, learning the martial arts, and he was really into the spiritual side and using your inner power and using your ki, and at first it was a little at first I didn't understand it, but it really opened my mind to martial arts wasn't just a physical activity, it was a mental and even more so a spiritual discipline, and it just took me over, and it was one of the best things I could have done for myself.
Wonderful. So now let me just so we can get some type of timeline here, what year are we looking at?
Okay, let me see. So I went into the Marines right out of high school in 1979, and my bad. I went into the I graduated high school in 1971, and I joined the Marines. It was 3 of us went together, and I think I went on this cruise in 1973, and it was for 6 months. And like I say, when I got back in 1973, I went back to my karate studio outside the base, and they promoted me to my green belt right away. And then I started in 1973 as a green belt. There was a great number of karate tournaments on the weekends in Washington, D.C., in South Carolina, and that's what I did. I just started traveling up and down the East Coast, fighting in karate tournaments on the weekends after I left off base in the Marine Corps.
Now, what state were you in originally?
That when I was in the service.
Actually, where were you born? I know in the service it seems like you said you was in North Carolina and then you went to Guam, but I mean.
I was born in Columbia, South Carolina. And,
okay, South Carolina.
Yeah, but I moved a lot because I moved from South Carolina to Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn?
Yeah, I moved to Brooklyn. The Bedford-Stuyvesant area. I think I was in the. I hadn't even started going to school yet. But I think I was 3 when I left South Carolina, and I stayed in Brooklyn until I was in the first grade. And then I went upstate New York and in Catskills. I stayed there until I was in the 4th grade. And then I came back to Hartford, Connecticut. And from the 4th grade till I graduated from Hartford, Connecticut, at a school called Weaver High School. I went into the Marine Corps in Hartford, Connecticut, and that started my journey on, touring the world and understanding the martial arts and seeing other cultures and other ways of life, and realizing that the Marine Corps actually opened my mind to another way of thinking, and realizing that I can't just be thinking about myself. There are so many people out there. And one thing that I learned, the major thing that I learned, how lucky we are in the United States, how lucky, how blessed
Amen.
we are. We have it so good compared to some of the places that I've gone.
We mean we have running water, huh? And we can actually flush a toilet.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, those of you listening to the legendary, not to say that he's been missing in action, but obviously in the karate world, we transcend into other areas. So I believe that, now in martial arts, did you ever get an opportunity to be an instructor also, or were you just a participant?
No. When I was a brown belt, that's when that was right before I met Tony Lopez. My karate coach in the Shaolin Ju Teshikan-Ryu style, he had to move, and he gave me the karate studio, and I was a brown belt. I was I think a first-degree brown belt, and I started teaching right there in Jacksonville, North Carolina. It was, that's where the Marines came when they got off the base. There was a whole bunch of bars, and you name it, it was downtown. And I ran this karate studio. And even though I was a brown belt, I still had the great skills. And I remember one time a guy was drunk. And he came into the karate studio, and I was teaching the class. And he said, "I want to fight the baddest mother, you know what, in this place." And he looked at me, and and the students looked at me. I said, "Okay." And we squared off, and the first thing I did a jump spinning back kick, and my foot hit him right in the mouth, and his bottom teeth came through his jaw. And he got up, and I said, well, see you later. And he never came back to that karate studio, and no one ever came up there again to try to mess with us.
That didn't turn out the way I thought it would have, but it probably turns out the way I would have done it because, I was born in Manhattan, raised in the Bronx, and you never let anyone disrespect you because otherwise your reputation starts to precede you as being a chump, a punk.
Oh.
And that wouldn't be cool.
Yeah, see, when I was younger, I didn't have a big head. They used to call me gigantic head in school because I was kind of thin, but I had a big head anyway. And they used to make jokes of me thinking that, oh, watch out, he's turning, duck. The back of my head would hit somebody. But, I mean, I didn't take no mess from nobody. I was so
you're telling me that you was the head of the class?
Yes. Yes. I mean, because I even though I was a brown belt, and there was no one else. God,
No. Listen, let me say that again. You mean to tell me that you was the head of the class?
Yes, I was headquarters. I got it. Yeah. They used to call me headquarters, too.
Oh, but they couldn't beat you in head-to-head competition.
Yes, no one. See there,
okay. Hey, all those compliments went to your head.
Yes, it did. It did. And
my guys. Yes, sir.
Huh?
No, I'm listening.
No, but that brings me, and I'm trying to remember. Yes, one day, Tony Lopez walked into the studio, and he was a Marine, and he started training with us a little bit, and I started meeting him on his base, and it was like I met my brother. He was like a child from another mother. I mean, I loved him like a brother. And within a week or two, I said, Tony, do you want to take over the school? I'll give it to you. It's yours. And that's what he did. He took over. And I remember my brother.
Wait, one second. Guys, those of you listening, there's a whole bunch of Tony Lopez, because that's a pretty popular name in the Latino world. But this Tony Lopez actually was born in the Dominican Republic, and then he grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and then he had a chance to end up in North Carolina, and then eventually started training with a gentleman by the name of Bill McDonald, which I'm getting ahead of ourselves. But it's the same Tony Lopez that years after lost an eye and still became a world champion as a fighter, weapons, and forms competitor, a black belt in the style of Taekwondo, but Junri version of it. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, and I loved him. Let me tell you, the one I emulated, Tony Lopez, dreamed about him. I did everything. And then what really, really accelerated me, I remember I would watch him do his kata, and his form was so distinct. Every facial movement was matching his body movement, was matching his kiyas, and it was like so perfect. And so the way I would emulate Tony, I said, well, what is he thinking about when he's doing what he's doing? And I tried to get my mind to think exactly what he thought when he did what he did. And even when I went out there to fight, and the thing was, whenever we went to a tournament, we never came back with less than first or second in either sparring or kata, because he preached kata as much as he did fighting. And then there was a Ray Perales. Have you heard of Ray?
Ray who?
Perales. He was a brown belt with me, and he's a black belt now. And we kind of stay in touch, me, Tony, and Ray. And but he and I was always in competition. But he would outdo me with the kata, but when it came to fighting, I had the edge. And it was almost like we were like competing for Tony's attention, and he got it in the kata, but I got it in the fighting. And I remember Ray, he did not like to fight me when we got out there, had to fight, because I would not hold back at all.
Wow. So let me just ask you. So when you were saying you were going to tournaments in Washington, D.C., do you remember any of the competitors at the time? Like, I would assume that guys like Jeff Smith was already there, and Michael Coles and people like that from Junior.
And I remember when I don't remember so much in D.C., but I remember when going to Sam Chapman's tournament and the tournaments in the South. I remember the guy, Bobby Tucker. You said he's in the hospital.
Well, Bobby Tucker is a gentleman who literally not present in the hospital, but he's in a situation where he's basically all of us. We're going to transcend to another level, and Bobby's a little he's a little sick, but Sam Chapman and Bobby Tucker are two people that this week I'm literally going to get a chance to do a power talk and interview with both of them. According to Keith Vitale, Bobby Tucker was the fastest guy he ever saw, or at least competed against. Which
right. That Bobby Tucker was a person that whenever I saw him, I would sit on the sidelines and I would watch him. He would be so fast and so perfect, and it was like he was moving without being seen, and there was no telegraph in his movement whatsoever. And so you didn't really see when he started, and you saw what he was going to do after it was done. And he was a person that I really looked up to, and I couldn't wait to become a black belt so that one day I would be able to fight him. But he was one of the guys that I for some reason I never got to fight. But yeah, Bobby Tucker was the man at the time, and I would read about him. I would see him at the tournaments, and it would be like, it would be like he wouldn't even know who the hell I was, or wouldn't even really even care. But it was like one of those people that you aspire to be like when it came to the martial arts.
Well, I heard that from guys like Keith Vitale. I heard that, and we'll be speaking to guys like Mike Geneva. I already spoke to Marty Knight and the descendants from South Carolina. I already added to the list Joey Shiflett and a lot of the guys
Joey
who.
Too.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Joey. I remember Mike Geneva. And Chief Vitale and I were really close friends.
Wow, and it's pretty interesting.
He and I went to Venezuela together.
Wow.
I had to do a full contact match. And then Keith Vitale had to do a point.
Oh, the super fights. Oh, similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right. So let's just get some timing together. All right. When Tony Lopez went from Taekwondo to kickboxing, I would assume that you probably went and followed the suit. How did that come about?
But let me tell you, we were still doing karate, and he was trying to introduce it to us. And we were kind of, what are you doing, Tony? And he would say, no, this is it. This is the way of the future. This is what's going to be happening. And it was like he was trying to, but it was close to the time we were getting out of the service. And so we were kind of splitting up. And that was right.
So what year is this? Maybe 75, 76? I'm not sure. I'm just trying to get
I got out of the service in 75, and that's when I fought my last. That's when Tony gave me my black belt, and I was brown belt, and he said, you know what, you're fighting black belt today, and and I was so happy. And then there was a guy that was from my other style. This black guy, he was from my other style with Maurice Stevens, and his name was Jones. But he was like a butthole, and he hated me. And then I hate fighting him because, you know how, the only reason I wanted to be a black belt was because with a black belt, I don't have to hold myself back. But sometimes I would fight him, and I would forget that I was just a brown belt. And he would get so pissed, and he would try to kill me. So I had to hold myself back. But the best part, that tournament in, let me see, was it? It was in North Carolina. Tony said, "You're fighting black belt today," and this guy was in my weight class. Oh, and I was licking my chops when I knew I had. But he and I had to fight. It wasn't for grand champions, but it was for first and second, for our weight class. And I kicked his butt. I mean, I beat him every way but loose. And then the last point I scored, he kind of tried to make believe he was passing out, that I used excessive contact. So they gave him the match. Yeah. And they gave
so
him
you chumped him on top of that.
Yeah, and he acted like I did excessive contact. He wouldn't get up. So he said he couldn't continue. So they gave him the match. And I think we were fighting for grand championship. Or no, because Tony won the grand championship. Yeah, we were, because I think I might have had to fight Tony for grand championship. But he won that match only because he was acting. Because I did not like him not one bit. And I had this black gi with red lining. I can remember, and I got it on Super 8. And I
Whoa!
Up and down that ring. Yes.
All right. So that's around 1975. So now the military is over. Tony Lopez obviously stays in North Carolina because that's as the history. And then shortly after that, Tony goes over to Japan and even fights representing the United States in the WKA, I believe. Him and Ivan Proud and things like that. So let's try to get some. All right. So now, so shortly after the military, what was it that you ended up doing then in terms of martial arts?
Then, right after I did, there was a karate studio. It was called. You ever hear of a guy named Dave Rupert? He was a heavyweight. He fought Jerry Rome, but he lost. And a guy named Paul Keller,
of course. He was a very tall guy. Dave Rupert is a big guy.
He was my bestest friend. He and I was like two children, and we would have so much fun because it was a Okinawan karate show in Rue, and I switched style. I mean, and I started training with them, and a guy named Papa Joe Hayes, and that was right when full contact was starting. But what Papa Joe Hayes decided to do, there was this boxing coach at the Sunshine Recreation Center, and he said, "You know what? You need to learn how to box." So for 2 years, I stopped karate, and I started boxing, amateur boxing, the Golden Gloves. And 3 months after I started, in 1977, I won the Ohio State Golden Gloves champion. I mean, it was only 3 months, and I won it.
Wait. Hold on a second. How did you get to Ohio? Wait a second. We're in North Carolina, and here you go. So listen, so that means that you was that Papa, that you was a Rolling Stone, because you're going from state to state to state. What's going on here?
No, well, see, what happened was the tournament, that was our last tournament in the military. North
Carolina?
Yeah, that was the last tournament. And we were getting out. It was near me getting out. And that's why he promoted me, because he knew I was getting out. Right,
but from there, he stood in North Carolina, I think, and then you went to Ohio. Is that correct?
I think he and my brother, they still, their time wasn't up yet.
Gotcha.
So when I got out, my parents had moved from Connecticut to Ohio, and so I left Camp Lejeune and went to Ohio. I started.
What city? What city in Ohio? What city?
Columbus, Ohio.
Gotcha.
And my mom and dad had just moved up there. My uncles lived up there, and they had a garage. And that's my father did body and fender work. And then I decided to go to Ohio State, and the karate studio that I was with, the Columbus Karate Academy had a class that they taught at Ohio State. And so, but Dave Rupert and Paul Keller said that I had to learn how to box. So from 1975 to 77, I just went to the Sunshine Recreation Center and did Golden Gloves, and I had 18 Golden Gloves matches. My record was 15-3. I won 15 of my 18 matches and lost 3, but I actually made it to the Nationals in 1977. I won the Ohio State Golden Gloves in 1978. I made it to the Nationals, and then after I did that, I decided to fight for the Olympics. And then what had happened was my karate coach, they had set a match up for me to do a full contact match, but they said that since I'm an amateur, they had to pay me under the table, that I couldn't get paid. So, but one of the boxing commissioners did not like that I was doing the martial arts, so he suspended me from the AAU. And at first I was devastated because I knew I was going to win me a gold medal one day. And so I said, well, that's when I decided to turn pro and knock out karate. That was in 1977.
Wow. Okay, let me just backtrack a little. So now you're in Ohio. So obviously in Ohio, there's a bunch of other fighters and there's karate tournaments there too. And you had guys like probably James Cook was probably there, right?
Yeah,
Cookie Monster.
James Cook. You remember J.T. Wills?
J.T. Wills, of course. That's from the Tracy Kempo School.
Yeah, the Kempo, because he refereed a lot of my fights, and he and I were really good friends. And let's see who else was in Columbus, Ohio. There was a lot of fighting, and that's where I met Ray McCallum. He and I fought. I also did the point circuit.
Right. Well, I'm saying in the point circuit over there, you also had guys like I'm not sure if Toki Hill was competing yet because he was doing AAU karate, but Ohio.
I met Toki Hills down here when I came to Georgia. I mean, I moved down here and opened the karate studio.
Okay. So all right. So now you start kickboxing or doing KO karate, or as they used to call it, full contact karate to the KO.
Right.
And
full contact.
And you're in Ohio. So how long? Let's and again, this is late 70s now, about between 77 and 78.
77. Okay, and then remember I told you about Dave Rupart.
Right.
I think in 78, going on near 79, he went down to meet Joe Corley for the first time, and he went down there and he had to fight down there, and then that's when Joe Corley signed him. Told him he would be his manager, but Dave Rupert told Joe Corley about me. He said there was another guy up there, and so I think Dave had a fight with Ross Scott, and I think Dave lost the fight with Ross Scott, but they set it up where I'd come down to meet Joe Corley, and I came down there. They had all these fighters set up. I mean, Dick Tershel. And there's a lot of guys I'm talking to on Facebook, but it was like about 15
if you look at the photo right now with me on Facebook, it's Dick Tershel, myself, and Joe Corley. We took that a few months ago.
Okay, but they had me down, and I had to fight. I had to fight Dick Tershel. That was the last person I had to fight, and like I said, I beat everybody's behind. I mean, everybody from the first person to the last. And then they saved Dick Tershel for the last, for the creme de la creme. And then
now, those of you who listening to this, Dick Tershel, also known as Duke, this guy literally, even though he's known as a very, very famous photographer, he was a no-joke fighter and crazy.
They were scared of him. They were scared of him. It was like when they spoke about Dick Tershel, you heard, and they said, okay. And when it came down to that match between he and I, we tore that ring up. And then, and like I don't back up, I don't care. And he's a heavyweight or light heavyweight, and I was a welterweight. But I hit him with a spinning wheel kick, and the only reason he didn't drop was I think the rope caught him. But once I did that, I was in like Flint.
Wow. So now you're in Ohio. You relocate. I should say you do a tryout to Georgia, and my very, very, very dear friend, extended family member at the highest level, one of martial arts' best people, Mr. Joe Corley himself, has you try out, and now you're in the team. So now, do you relocate to Georgia at this point?
Okay, no, yeah, but the way we had to do it was, you remember Mike Moore?
Yes.
Yeah, Mike Moore told my trainer, his name was Gary Brown. He was a boxing coach at the Sunshine Recreation Center that was training me in boxing. But he had a black belt also. But he was like one of those guys that if you could picture a cook, a chef, a master chef that didn't use seasonings but techniques and styles of fighting to put them together so that they would work in such a way that would be like unbeatable, and that's what he would do. And so he's a master.
He's a master strategist.
Yes, a super master strategist, because he trained a lot of professional world champions, like a guy named lightweight Hugh McKinte, Bonzel Johnson. I mean, there was a lot of Buster Douglas. I mean, he trained a lot of world champion boxers. But he and I was like one mind, because he and I, we just hit it off. So he and I moved. We moved to Athens, Georgia, and Michael Moore let us move in with him, because Michael needed a trainer, and then I was a sparring partner, and we lived at Michael's house, I guess about 6 months, 7 months. But we was at that school studio, and we would tear that studio up. And then see the way Mike and I were.
Now, one second, just so we know, was this the studio over in Buckhead?
No, this is the studio in Athens, Georgia.
Gotcha.
Mike lived he had a karate studio in Athens, Georgia.
Okay. So you're still in Athens. You're not over at Corley's yet.
No, not yet. But me and Mike, I mean, we loved each other like brothers. But when we stepped out in the ring, we became animals. And who was going to be the alpha? Even though I was smaller, I knew I was going to be the alpha. And he and I would fight, and sometimes Gary would have to jump in the ring to stop us. Only thing that Gary didn't do was get a bucket of cold water and throw in the ring. But we would try to destroy each other. And then it took us for a couple of seconds to calm down. But it was but again, he was a middleweight, and I was a welterweight, so he was like one class ahead of me. But I was so much sharper than he was, and even though he had the power, I just used my speed and my finesse, and he helped me out so much, and I helped him out. And like I say, I think he won all of his matches that he when he fought, and all he did was get me ready for anybody that I had to get step in the ring with. So
so now while you do this, in the meantime, the PKA grow and grow. Joe Corley has a big camp there in Georgia. He's bringing in a whole bunch of people. He's managing people. This is just after he finished fighting Bill Super for Wild. So he has a school in Buckhead. He has guys like the Jerry Rooms. He has Asa Gordon as a boxing coach there.
Asa Gordon was like my bestest friend. He and I hit it off. Awesome.
Rest in peace to him.
Yes, and then Richard Jackson. Remember Richard Jackson?
Rest in peace to him too. Yes, sir. Richard Jackson actually came from South Carolina, from Keith Vitale over down to Georgia too.
His friends too, and he had a problem. He had just a really bad problem, but he could have been world champion if it wasn't for his problem. But he and I became really, really close, and when we sparred, he was like one of the only guys, because he had one of those spinning back kick. I mean, not a spinning back
fist. Maybe arguably the best spinning back fist in the history and the fastest of kickboxing, possibly.
Yes, and he caught me with that one time in the ring and dropped me to my knees. And that was the only time that I would ever let that happen. But he did. He caught me off guard, and I underestimated him with that spinning back fist, and I was down on my knees. But he and I became really good friends. And so
I can only imagine what kind of workouts. Were you there also when Holyfield was there as an amateur boxer?
A little.
Okay.
I remember him coming there, but I think it was after. I think it was after I don't know, but it sounds familiar because I remember seeing him. I remember him being at the fight sometimes. But I don't.
Yeah, well, Holyfield used to train. He used to train over in Buckhead. He was used as one of the sparring partners for Jerry Rome.
Okay,
to get him prepared.
Well, it wasn't me. It wasn't me, but I met him a couple of times, and I heard that he was coming there, and I remember. I remember, Jerry Rome being the man. But you know what? One thing about it was I hold another first. I'm Atlanta's first world karate champion, and that was how I really wanted people to remember, because of all the people that Joe had, and it was like everybody was kind of falling short. That actually lived in Atlanta, and that was going for the title. And I remember Jerry Rome, because he couldn't have done it, but everybody have their own vices, and it just seems like that kind of detracts your mind, so you can't perform at your highest level at the time that is needed. And but I know one time the first time I fought.
All right, let me just try to get a little control over it in terms of the chronological. So now you started to train. Do you remember your first PKA fight? Because now you're going to start a career at the Professional Karate Association. So
okay,
do you remember who your first fight was?
Yeah, it was. Oh yeah, I do remember. I got it. It's on. If you go online, it's in. It was McLean. What is his name? McLean. John McLean.
Okay.
And I knocked him out in the 6th round, and it was one of the Joe Corey's super fights at the Hilton. That was my first fight that I fought, and he and I tore up the ring. We set that place on fire, and that fight. That's when Gary Brown and I, our minds connected in that fight, and then there was like J.T. Wells was refereeing, and there was a technique that Gary and I perfected, is where we get the person in the corner, and then I would grab the ropes. If their back was on the rope, and I would pull the rope, and then I would hit them with a round kick as I pull the rope. And it would hit their back.
Like a slingshot, huh?
Yes. Oh, and that's when J.T. Wells came over there. And that's when they made those rules where you couldn't
get off the rope.
Yeah, they couldn't grab the rope. And because I that's what I would do, and I would get him in that corner.
Hey, well, you trying to decapitate the guy, huh? To hit him with a clothesline with your leg.
Yes, I was horrible. I was a terror. When I got in the ring, and then like Gary Brown, you could hear him. He'd call me to come. He'd say, "Get everybody over here right. Get everybody over here right. Back up with right round kick. Back in, back out." And you could hear him in that fight, and a fraction of a second before I do a technique, you'd hear him call it. And then you would see near the ending of the fight that I was doing this techniques a fraction of a second before he would say them. And
wow.
You would hear him in the corner. And it got to the point where everything that he would call out, I was doing right before he would call it out. And
wow. And that's where teamwork makes the dream work. That's when teamwork makes the dream work. A lot of times people believe that 1 and 1 can equal 2. That seems like 1 and 1 in that case equals 11. He was on a whole other level with two minds working the same, and he was representing.
Same, and the same thing. His eyes were my eyes, and my eyes were his eyes. And it was like we were in sync with each other, and it was like we were seeing the same thing at the exact same time, And it was since we trained so hard and so long together, it was like our minds were just acting like one person.
Wow. Okay, so now, obviously, you're in the welterweight division. Name some of the contenders that were there and some of the people you had to fight on your way up to eventually a world title.
Okay, that's the other thing, and that was another thing. I really didn't get my fights. I don't even have any copies of the. Let's see, my record was 27 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. 15 of those fights were on PKA, was on ESPN, and I really don't even have any.
Don't worry about the footage because I promise you one thing. We have.
You ever hear a guy named Gator Garland? In Florida?
I don't know who he is, but I know Joe Coley, and we have a bunch of videos that we're transferring for what was analog into digital. So within the next year or so, you're gonna get a chance to see quite a few of your fights. I promise you. You get a copy of not only those, but also an app that we make it for those things. And that's, let me explain what this is, sir. This is an opportunity for me, Jerry Fastly Fontanez, who's been training since 1974. If I had an opportunity to put together an army of only 300 people, like that movie, you, Mr. Gripper, are on my team. You're on my army, buddy. That's what this is about.
Oh. I just watched that movie, the new one, the 300. I just watched it 2 days ago. The second part of it. Right,
I saw that also. It's almost like a prequel. But anyway, the point is that if I went to war and I wanted to pick the best people, now mind you, there's a bunch of people who already did interviews for us at Core Power Talks, including guys like Mr. Corley. And Corley, I asked him, the same way I asked other people, who they recommend that we have on our team. And your name obviously popped up. And in addition to that, yeah, man, when it's all said and done, there's a lot of people in martial arts who never get an opportunity to tell their part of their story. Now, obviously, it's been probably years since you had to even think about this, but you, sir, are a pioneer legend in an industry that literally is international. We have some people call it a family, some people call it a nation, because there's a commonality, whether it was inspired by Bruce Lee or becoming that person who was the king of the hill, or as he called the alpha male. Regardless, we found people of similar mind and had an opportunity to take our life to a whole other level because we interconnected with people that was helping us, to do that. And Corley's name pops up quite often with a lot of people. And the PKA obviously is something that's coming back. They had some fights over in Canada recently with Johnny Ferrier's brother.
In Canada.
Okay, so let's just talk about some of your most memorable fights and then eventually fighting for the world title, and who was it against?
Oh, one of my memories was a guy named Gator Garland. I mean, I don't know if they got it on video, but Gator Garland, it was a 7-round fight in West Palm Beach, Florida. This guy, he was ferocious. And he just texted me a picture of him and I in the ring while we were fighting, but he was coming towards me and I was coming towards him. He has his hands up and I have my hands up. You see it from the side, and he just sent it to me. And like I said, this is one of the fights that we fought back in 1979, 1980 in West Palm Beach, and it was one of those fights where the first thing I did, me and Gary, I said, when I walked out there, the first technique I threw was a jump spinning back kick to the face. And I didn't know if it landed, and he told me today, he said, yeah, and he said, Jeff, you remember the first technique that you threw at me? I said, no. He said, there was a jump spinning back kick. I said, yeah, I remember now, because I told Gary I was going to do it. I said, did it hit you? He said, well, I had my gloves up, and it hit me right on my gloves, and my gloves pushed it into my face, but since my hands were up, but that jump spinning back kick was perfect. But his name was Gator Garland.
Wow, you know what? Let me just say this. During that time, I fancy myself as being one of the martial arts, if not biggest fan of all time. I'm also a historian. So is there a possibility that the promoter over there at West Palm Beach was someone like Steve Shepard?
It was Steve Shepard. Most of my
there you go.
Was Steve Shepard.
Okay.
Most of them.
Guys, those of you who listening, Steve Shepard is a gentleman who fought for the world title multiple times, and he literally is a very good friend of mine. Not only was he a promoter, he was also a world champion. Him and Ernest Hart fought quite a few times. I believe it was 3 times or so. But what's really interesting is that while you're doing this, Tony Lopez is also a world champion, but in another circuit.
That was another thing. That was another thing that from our karate studio, he and I became world champions. I mean, we trained together when we were in the Marine Corps, and I took everything that I learned from him and put together with. It was almost like, you know, like when you pray for something, and then it's like, you know, your higher power is leading you to people, and you don't know who they are.
What you mean ask and you shall receive?
Yes, and I received everything I've ever asked for. And if I didn't get what I asked for, I got something better.
Amen. Praise God.
And it was like, and I was like an innocent child. I was so innocent that I could have been abused if I would have got around the wrong people. I could have messed up because I was that trusting. I mean, I still am, but it was like God was protecting me. He was sending me to these people to nurture me and to fulfill the dream, because my dream wasn't my dream because he gave it to me, and he was going to make sure that it'd be used for his will.
Hey, I have a question. If I mention Joe Corley, what can you say?
When you mention Joe Corley, what do I say?
Yeah, what can you say? I'm just mentioning the word Joe Corley. What's the first few things that pop up to you?
Okay. When I came from Columbus, Ohio, and Kathy Farmer picked me up at the airport. She was driving me around. She was Joe Corley's right-hand man. And there was this song that was out back then, and it was talking about and it sung about the coolest guy, the way he dressed and the way he walked, and when people saw him, they were in awe of him. And it was this song, and whenever I heard that song, I thought it was Joe Corley they were singing about. I promise you, it makes me want to cry just to think about it. It was like
Corley is a cool cat, right? People who never had an opportunity to break bread with Master Joe Corley, you don't realize he's one of the best people that God ever created.
Yes, and that's what it was. And it was like and I said, I want to be like him. Yeah, and I think that was some of that was in the song. I want to be like him. I can't remember the song, but it was.
We'll find that.
Yeah.
We'll find that. Awesome.
That was it. What it was, and it was like Joe Corley walked on water way I thought. I mean, he walked on water, and then the only problem that we ever had and I forgot, I didn't realize how many haters he had. And when I started listening to some of his haters, and I might have listened to him at the wrong time, and it might have gave me the wrong idea. But
right.
I snapped out of that craziness.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it all comes down to the same thing. You know, people want to divide and conquer because when they're play haters, they know that they have to use connivingness, you know, and that's sometimes Satan works in mysterious ways, you know.
And it was connivingness in it, but Joe wasn't conniving. He just had a vision, and he had tunnel vision, and he was going to follow that vision to the end, and there was nothing.
Well, he was on a mission to help people. He was on a mission to help.
Yeah, especially if you were on the same road that he was. And like I said, I just happened to be, and it was like I prayed about it, and like I said, everything I prayed for, it was like, and it's like you pray to God for an opportunity, and you don't know what you're praying for, and then it's like there's a void somewhere, there's a hole that needs to be filled, but only one person can fill it, but no one knows that hole is there, and the only one that knows that void is there is God. And God is going to make sure that he sends the right person to fill that void. And he
Amen to that. Amen to that. Okay, so now let's talk about the World Championships.
Oh, wow. So there was 2 fights between me and Ernest Hart. The first one, he won. But what had happened was 3 weeks before the fight, I broke my foot. And I couldn't train. It was a fracture in my instep. And then Joe and I was telling me that I need to ride a bike and all that, but I didn't. But I was good. But I didn't train as hard as I could have. And then, during the fight, they put like a styrofoam cast on my foot, and I fought him. But I figured I would knock him out in the first or second round. But Ernest Hart was in the best shape of his life because I threw it was at the Hilton, and let me tell you some of the people that was there. Isaac Hayes was there. What else? God, I can't remember his name. Another.
Where was it at the Omni or what? Do you know?
No, this was
where was it at?
It was Atlanta Hilton. It was at the Atlanta Hilton.
Atlanta Hilton. Okay, downtown.
Yeah. Burt Reynolds. Yeah, Burt Reynolds was there. Who else? It was a star-studded. It was, and then Joe, he had talked me up, and it was like I was talked up, and that was, like I said, but see, and Joe knew how I fight because I would do all the flying kicks and the double kicks and triple kicks. I do 3, 4, 5 punch combinations. I do lateral movement, moving in and out, cutting the ring down. But me and my trainer, we knew that I wasn't in shape and that my foot was broke. So we had a whole nother strategy that I would just have to, I wouldn't kick that much, but I would use more of my hands. Yeah. But Joe was pissed. And I remember in that third round, Joe came to my corner. He grabbed me by my cheek. He said, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Wow.
What are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? What are you doing? But Joe didn't know. Joe didn't know that my foot was broke. I mean, that I had to fight a whole nother way, and he was pissed. And then right after that, that's when I went out there for the that third round and they was telling me, now that I look back and saying, kick. But I had Ernest Hart on the ropes, and I was almost knocking him out. But I only got 6 kicks in, so I got 4-point penalty. But but by the end of the fight, it was a split decision, and I lost by 3 points. But if I would have got my kicks in, I would have won the fight. But again, I didn't deserve to win the fight because I didn't train to win the fight, and I cheated myself, and I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And it was like one of the greatest learning lessons of my career. And I remember thinking about it, and I remember I'm not a world champion. I didn't train like a world champion, and a world champion wouldn't do what some of the crazy stuff that I was doing. A world champion is dedicated. A world champion is honorable, and a world champion puts what needs to be first. And it was like then I told him I didn't deserve the title. But 6 months later, I had a rematch. And let me tell you,
yeah, baby.
My trainer, Gary Brown, he lived in Athens, and I was here in Georgia. And every night, I would drive to Athens, and I'd be so tired driving back. And then when I fight, I didn't close my eyes, and even if I could, because I would ride a punch, and then let the punch until it extends, and that it would even touch my eyeball, and I wouldn't blink my eye. I keep my eyes open, and sometimes if there was dirt on the glove, it would scratch my eyeball, and sometimes I was driving back from Athens, I couldn't even drive because my eyeballs were cut. So that, like I said, I didn't close my eyes because I would follow the punches, and sometimes it would touch the cornea in my eye. A couple of times I had to go to the hospital, go to the emergency room to get these drops and all this other stuff. But for 6 months, all I did was drive to Athens and drive home. I didn't drink. I didn't party. And I would get up and I would run. And it was in the wintertime, and I had a friend named Dr. Freelander. And he would come over to my house in his car.
Hey, Freelander's still around, just so you know. He's still training with Master Joe Cody to this very day.
He's my bestest friend. His mom and I.
He's still around.
Yes. I was just talking to him on Facebook tonight.
Oh, wow.
And he would come to my house, and he would pick me up, and then I would get my running in, and he would drive his car, and I would be right behind his car doing my road work. And he would be always there, talking me up and really trying to be there. And like I said, I did everything I was supposed to do. And then the night of the fight, we came and got out there, and the first round, the very first round, me and Ernest Hart was out there, and I threw a back leg ground kick, and I dropped my right hand, and he stepped in with a left hook, and it just dropped me to the mat. And this is another spiritual revelation, because I hit that mat on the ground. I was down on the ground, and I remember J.T. Wells, 1, 2, and I was remembering, why am I down here? What did I do wrong? It was like I was trying to find a reason to stay down. And I was down at 6. I said, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't cheat. I didn't do anything wrong. I could get up. And I got up by the 8 count, and he was on me. And I was on the rope. I kept my hands up. And that was in the first round. The second round was the same way. But in the third round, my mind came back, and I lit Ernest Hart up. And I was beating him from everywhere, every corner of that ring. And right in the 8th round, I got him. We called it the V, where I get him pinned in the corner, so they can't fall to the left, and they can't fall to the right. And then and if they fall forward, I would half step back, throwing punches and kicks. And then when those punches and kicks pushes them back to the rope, I would half step in and start. And then when they go to the right, I would half step to the right, so that he couldn't fall. And I knocked him out. And I remember I was punching him, and I remember saying, "Grip, please stop." And that's when I turned it on even more. And then J.T. Wells, he leaped in there because I was going to kill him. I knew I was going to kill him. It wasn't because I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop.
Hey, hold on a second. Mr. Gripper, come back to 2015. Let's come back to 2015, Grandpa. Come on, man. You're in the ring right now, and you don't want to stop now.
Back up. Slow down. Yeah.
Oh, my, that's wonderful. Amen. Amen. So now you're the champion. And how does that feel?
Oh, it was great. It was just great. And then I remember a guy named Dan Russ, and he's on Facebook. But Dan Russ, and he jumped in that ring, and he grabbed my cheek, and he kissed me right on my mouth. When I won the title, right in the ring. And I remember people trying to jump in the ring, and Gary was pushing them out because he said I needed to get my air. And it was like the greatest thing. And I remember Joe taking me to different bars and different places, and I would be meeting these people. And
the champ is here. The champ is here.
Yes. Yes. It was the greatest time. And I remember I was walking around when J.T. Wells, he grabbed me and pulled me off. It was almost like I couldn't even believe what had happened, because it was like
it was a surreal experience, huh? Everything in slow motion.
Yeah,
and
my mind, I wasn't even me. It was like I was still this vicious animal. And then as soon as he pulled me off, and I could remember I was taking this deep breath, and it was like my mind came back to myself. And
yeah, that's called an out of body experience, when people cross over and become this other you. You know.
Yeah, it was like because again, I had him in that corner, and I couldn't stop. I remember I could hear him, "Grip, please stop, please stop." And that's when I even turned it on even more. But like I said, once it rolled, and then I heard Jeff Gripper did it, and I hear the crowd just yelling and screaming, and then just to see that happy look on Joe's face, you could see he was like a big kid. Just to see that the smile on his face, he had this smile, and that it was like the greatest. It was just the greatest. And
wow, ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking to Mr. Jeff Gripper, world champion, kickboxing, or I should say, full contact fighter, who had a chance to travel literally all over the world and throughout the United States. And today, he's 63 years young. He's a grandfather who literally is a man of God, Christian, who today him and I had a chance to have a conversation before this interview, and it was one of the most incredible dialogue that I ever had with somebody, because he's on a whole other level, guys. He is on a whole other metaphysical understanding, the real deal level. We're not going to have that conversation here today, because most of you guys will probably think we're crazy, but when it's all said and done, he is not only the real deal, but legendary in every aspect that I've noticed so far. He's gracious, he's appreciative, he has a track record that's impeccable, and I can honestly say that I feel like I found a real, true big brother, and I want to thank you for that, sir.
Oh, thank you. You brought back such memories that I could talk like this.
Oh, my, I had to pull you out the corner.
Yeah.
I had to pull you out the corner like I was J.T. Will. Rest in peace of J.T. Will.
Yeah. Oh, my God. It was just, I was in the hotel. I could see the chandelier, and I could see all the people. Oh, this is great. This was just great. I really.
Hey, sir, let me ask you just a few questions, because just to be fair and conscious, obviously I asked you for 45 minutes and we're way past that, but I want to ask you just two things, if it's possible for us to visit you another time in the future, because I think we're only touching the tip of the iceberg, sir. I think what you really have to offer to the martial arts community and world is experience firsthand. I mean, you were able to put yourself in what's considered the proper state of mind as if you was in the ring today. And that in itself is something that some people have experienced that, being in the zone.
Uh-huh.
You know, they call that the zone, they call that the flow, they call that out-of-body experience. And that's something that literally we all have the potential of doing, but not many had a chance to tap into.
I understand.
At that point right there, you could have done anything you wanted in the world. And so is it possible for us to revisit you in the future?
Oh, of course. The future is set for great things, and just talking to you just illuminates the experience, and that nothing I did alone, and just that
right.
The awesomeness of God, that he can send you all these people, and then over all these years, 30, 40 years, and still feel like we just met.
Mm-hmm.
Still feel like you just met, and it's just so wonderful that His grace has allowed me to, to verbalize all of His goodness. Just to be able to verbalize it. It humbles me to verbalize some of the things that He's allowed me to do, to verbalize some of the people He has allowed me to meet.
Well, that's the graciousness that we all need to have. Guys, listen to me. Again, we're not here to preach anything. We're just here to expose the fact. Fact of the matter is that, we are here based on the grace of God. I don't care who you call your God. Doesn't really matter, because that's all a matter of, whatever. But one thing is for sure, that we all were born for greatness, and when you get an opportunity to tap into just a little bit of that potential greatness, you may end up becoming a world champion, not in the ring only, but in life. I understand you're a grandfather today, sir.
Oh yes, I got a grandson, Jeffrey Jr., and he is 3. I have 2 granddaughters. One is 6, the other is 7, and I get to spend, since I'm retired and since I'm following my dream, I get to spend so much time with them, and it's almost like you realize about your kids, you're so conscious about them doing the right thing, and you, as a parent, not making a mistake. Being a grandparent, you don't have to worry about making a mistake, because you can't make a mistake, because all you do is have fun, and all you do is just direct them, and they are so open-minded because your attention is only on them, and I don't have to run to work. I don't have to run to pay the bills. I don't have to run to do this. All I have to do is just to have fun. and
you know what's so interesting now? Those of you who are listening know that I spend quite a bit of time presently with my grandson Jerry Fontanes III, and I'm fortunate enough to have my son Jerry Fontanes II here, and and that's the bottom line. But when I look at my grandson, I see myself in him, and I see my son in him, and it's freaky, to know that there I am.
Yes. It's always like, there you are, but they have the knowledge that we didn't.
Yeah, right. There I am at another level, because they supersede what we did, because they have a whole next, the 2015 model.
the customized model.
It's phenomenal. It's really, really incredible. So, sir, listen, if you right now just want to give a shout-out to some people, we already got a commitment, everyone. We got a commitment for the champ to come back and share some information. Guys, I'm going to warn you, when he comes back, we're going to take things to a whole new stratosphere. For those of you who really want to find out the real deal, what a warrior is on earth and the connection with your creator, then tune in to that Power Talk, because I promise you, we're taking our gloves off and our boots off, and we're not letting anybody out that corner. We're not letting anybody out the corner. We're going all out, and I'm going to help him. He was in Bed-Stuy. I was in the Bronx, coming from Manhattan, and we know how to jump people if necessary. So we're going to jump you to help you go to the next level.
Yeah.
But let's give some shout-outs to some people that you may not have thought about in years that may be around. Hey, guys, by the way, thank God for Facebook, because we get a chance to interact with our people and family that we would have never in the past been able to do it that easily. Incredible.
Right. Like I said, I there are so many people that I have come in contact with, and for me to even try to pick one person out or 2 people out, I can't do it right now.
Well, let me just tell you this. Would you mind if, when I speak to Tony Lopez tomorrow, that I mention you?
No, you better mention me. What are you talking about? You better. God.
Oh, my God. I have to mess with you, Again, I'm going to speak to Mr. Bobby Tucker, God willing, also in the next few days, and I'm going to mention the kind words you said about him.
Yeah.
Oh, Steve Shepard also. Of course, Joe Corley.
They don't. Yeah, you don't know. I used to look up to him. I mean, literally. And I said, okay, I know what perfection is.
Wow. Wow. All right, so listen, on that note, guys, we're going to end this phone call, but let me say this. This is an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you right now, those of you who know me, you know I'm kind of crazy and I'm eccentric and sometimes I think things from a whole other level, but I'm telling you this person is absolutely not on the same level because I will learn from him in addition to sharing some experiences. But Mr. Jeff Gripper is the real deal. Grandpa's in the house. All the shout-outs to the grandpas out there who get an opportunity to play around with their children, grandchildren, and there's nothing more powerful than love. And this is an opportunity to spread love, share love, and history. On top of that, we get a chance to go back in time and know that time is really just a notion, and we were there. Those of you who listen, you know that I had to pull Jeff Gripper off of Mr. Ernest Hart, not once but twice tonight.
Thank you, Jerry. Jerry, thank you very much. I mean, this has just been a joy. I mean, it just lets me remember how happy I really am.
It's incredible. Now, this is the last thing. Sir, and some crazy words from a crazy Puerto Rican from the Bronx. When I say A.B., Mr. Gripper, you say see ya. A.B.
Okay. See ya.
God bless, guys. This is officially over. Jerry Tracy Fontanez and Jeff Gripper in the house. We out of here. God bless. Mr. Gripper,
yes,
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Man.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what this is all about.
All of what you feel and I'm feeling too.
And sorry to your wife that you won't sleep too much tonight. That's the warning.
I know, you got me all crazy. Hey, but I went out and bought me a bottle of wine, and I did not drink that wine until after I'm going to go pour me a glass of Riesling right now, and I'm going to be ready.
Hey, have a glass there for me, and I'm going to promise you this. When I get to Atlanta in the next few weeks, we're going to be giving you a phone call because I need to see you and get a hug. I need a hug.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I need one too. Because like I said, I know you're a good man. I mean, God, He just keeps on giving.
I appreciate it. I'll contact you within the next day or so because this, when you get a chance to listen to this, as a matter of fact, this is what I'll do for you. Within the next 15 minutes, you're going to be able to go to Dojine, DOJINE.com/Gripper. And if you want to listen to this while you're having that wine, you just might enjoy that wine a little better.
Okay.
How's that?
I'm getting a pen. I'm going to write.
Don't worry about it. I'm gonna text it to you. And I'm going to send it to you via Facebook also, so you have but basically, Dojine is DOJINE.com, and then / your last name, and it'll be your own page. And at least tonight we'll have the audio. You just press play and enjoy. It could be on your phone or on the computer, either way, and that'll make that wine a little more tasteful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, buddy?
Much.
God bless. I'm going to take care of that right now. Love you too, man. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye. Oh, we had the best interviews, Jill. It was just great. Oh, that was the interview? Yeah. It was just great. I'm going to put you on the line. It's kind of really registering. Not registering, but when I saw this person like this, let's see if I can find it. But it's I'm like history. Great. Yeah. it's just it was just so great. Man, we had the best interview. It's the best interview. So tell them how to go.
It was interesting.
Uh-huh.
It was really boring. Then they got to the last part of it.
Uh-huh.
And this lady, it was $300,000 that Atlanta Tech. I was expecting an elderly white woman or an elderly